This video you are about to watch is very educative and entertaining. It proves that snail greenhouses are effective for snail rearing, and it also shows that intensive caging systems work well for snail farming. We have had some snail farmers condemn either intensive caging system or extensive caging system, labeling those who preach and practice this system as thieves. But thank God today, some of them have now adopted the very system they once condemned. I have posted many videos to demonstrate that both systems can work. The problem often lies with the people, not the system. I have also posted video explaining why some snail farms fail, regardless of whether they use intensive caging system or extensive caging system. Let us take a moment to relax and watch this video
by opening some of the boxes to show you what it looks like inside. All right, so here we have our first. We're going to open. Yeah, so this is what a concrete pen looks like, because we have snails in here and we also have the feed for the snails. So you can see the pen, one part of it is covered with dried leaves. That's because we have snails in this pen. So the snails during the daytime, they go under the dried leaves to hide, and in the night they come out to feed. Now if you look at this leaf, you can see that there are so many holes on it. You can see this is taro, cocoyam leaf. All these holes you see were created by the snails, and when you come in now, you discover that there are no snails here, except for one. Okay, there's one snail there, you can see, but the majority of the snails are inside here. So let's open and see if we have snails here. You can see these are majority of the snails here, so they usually hide under the leaves. Let's open another pen for you to see, because we like consistency. All right, so you will see a similar thing here. The leaves are being eaten up and the snails are hiding under the shade. So you can see these are the point of lay breeding snails here. So I'm sure you now know that nobody moved the snails in there. All right, we have another pen here. So let's open this one and show you, then we'll talk a little, then we take it to the other phase. All right, so you can see the snails here. These are the snails. So yeah, okay, so this is the concrete pen system. The snails lay their eggs here, and we take out the eggs and incubate them and hatch the eggs. When we hatch the eggs, they become baby snails or hatchlings, and those hatchlings, or baby snails as they are called, we'll move them into the semi-intensive system, which is the greenhouse system. So they remain there and grow to table size, and we'll sell them from there. So the major activity of the concrete pen structure is for breeding and record keeping, because here you can take all forms of record: production records, incubation records, inventory records, hatchling records. All of these can be taken here. But in the semi-intensive system, the system does not allow you to take or keep records. So that's the only disadvantage. But in terms of growth, the growth rate is faster in the semi-intensive system compared to the pens. Now in the pens, as you can see, is a cubicle, a small boxed pen. So the animals do not have much freedom to move about, and as a result of that, it hampers or slows their growth. So because of that, we only introduce the breeding snails here. And why we prefer to breed them here is because when we pick out the eggs ourselves and incubate them ourselves artificially, the eggs will hatch more, unlike when they are allowed to lay on their own in the natural wild or in the natural habitat. The hatching percentage is lower. Why? Because we prepare a soil that is suited for hatching conditions. So here productivity is high, but growth is slow. So in order for us to mash it up together, we ensure that we get high productivity by doing the breeding in the concrete pens and faster growth in the semi-intensive system. So before we go to the semi-intensive system, let's show you the incubator. So this is what I mean by an incubator. So the incubator is not like that of the poultry incubator, where you have a lot of technology involved in it. This is just a pen with a soil, a bare soil, of course, a treated soil. You can see the nature of the soil. You see how fine this soil is. So the soil is well treated. You can see it scatters. So this is an adequate or moist enough soil for egg hatchability. Well, a situation where you mold it like this and you throw it, it retains its shape. That's to say that the moisture content is too high for the hatching. And if you try to mold it, it doesn't mold at all. Then the temperature is too high. So it means that the soil is too dry. So these are techniques that are involved in snail production. So if you look here now, you will see we have these eggs were picked on the 4th of June. That's why you have 4/6/2025. The number of eggs is 23 eggs. Expected date of hatching is 18th of next month. So this is 21 days from now where the eggs are going to hatch. So we have eggs here, we have eggs here. So this paper you see here gives you an indication of where eggs have been incubated. And if you're bringing new eggs to incubate, you do not need to disturb that area. And also, it tells you the expected dates of the hatching of those eggs. So you do not disturb them until that exact date when they are due for hatching. So the process of hatching is to open up the eggs and bring them out. You'll see most of the eggs have hatched into baby snails. Then we'll pick out the hatched eggs, then re-incubate the ones that have not hatched for a further 15 days. And they will hatch between that extra 15 days. So the eggs that have been picked, the snails that have been picked from the eggs that have hatched, they are hatchlings. So we transfer those snails to the greenhouse and where they grow vigorously, because the growth pattern here is slow. Like we said, this is not a very natural environment. But when we take you to the greenhouse, you will see it is completely natural. So that is the management practice. The breeding and every other management practice is done in the concrete pen system. Then, when they hatch the baby snails, we move them to the greenhouse system. So before we move you to the greenhouse system, I will just continue showing you the feeding platforms. All right, so let's see here. We have some here. Yes, so you can see there's snails everywhere. But during the daytime, you didn't see all of these snails. They were all hiding. But in the night time, they come out. We have another set here. So one has to be very careful where one steps on. So you can see the young ones that are growing to become adult snails. All the snails you see here were once like this. And because it's a natural environment, they grow very fast. And trust me, you can also have snails like this. So we have another set here. Just give them a view of it. Let them see what it looks like. Then we have another set here. You can see what they look like there. So usually in the nights like this, if we have demands, we come and we pick sizes like this. This is a good size for point of play. So we pick sizes like this, gather them up and supply to our clients. So that's the beauty of the greenhouse. All right, we are at the extreme end. We have one set here. So this also helps us to monitor the snails. Just show them this platform here. So you can see there are snails here too. We also have some very young ones here. You can see them. All right, so this is what it looks like in the greenhouse during the night time. And of course, we are going to take you now to the concrete pen, because we promised you we are going to show you the activities of the snails in the greenhouse during the night and also in the concrete pen during the night. So we are going to move to the concrete pen and we're going to end the video in the concrete pen. So we are in the concrete pen now. You can see it's dark. We literally do not need lights in the snail farm because the snails are nocturnal animals. So you don't really need the lights in the nights. But then it is still good for you to have electricity inside, especially for big farms. When you work late, you can on the lights and continue the feeding arrangement until you're done and you switch it off. As long as there's no activity on the snail farm, you do not need the lights. All right, so let's show you the pens. What it looks like now inside. So you can see they've all come out of the dry plantain leaves inside the pen and are now feeding on the vegetable and the trichulia. So what you see, the snails all clustered around here, they are feeding on the Trichulia africana, which is the African breadfruit, while some are feeding on the cocoyam leaf. So you notice that we did not put all the fruits in one spot. Just take a look at what is happening here, because these two are in a close proximity. You have lots of snails crowding it. So it's best when you spread them out. If you look at this, you'll see there's one snail here, a few snails there, a few snails here, and more of them here, because these two are closely together. So that's what happens in the snail pen in the night. Then the next morning when you come, you barely find any snail out here. They all go back inside and continue the activities. So let's check this other pen. Yeah, so you can see the same activity is going on here. They are feeding on the leaves, and of course they are feeding on the Trichulia africana. All right, we'll check here again. You can see they're all out, feeding on the Trichulia, feeding on the leaf, and carrying out their normal and usual activities. So they come alive in the night, and that is why we call them nocturnal animals. So snail farming is a very lucrative business. But like I said in the earlier parts of the video, two characteristics you must have as a snail farmer is patience and commitment. You need to be patient, allow them to grow and get to table size. One of the advice I like to give to you people out there, like I said, this video is going to be a comprehensive one, and that advice is that do not seek to buy big size snails for production. Many of you who order for snails for production, you complain the snail sizes are small. That is because at point of lay, the snails are not fully grown. So while they are still growing, they are laying. So as they lay, they are growing. So if you want bigger size snails as your parent stock, it means that those snails have been laying for quite some time before you purchase them. And the snail has a reproductive lifespan of 3 to 4 years. So assuming you're buying snails that are already 2 years into production, you only have 1 active year out of them, and the graph begins to drop, the laying begins to drop. So that is why you get young snails that are at point of lay. So you get the best out of those snails. So do not go for snails that are very big when you're looking for snails as point of lay. But if you're looking for snails for consumption, then you can go for the bigger sizes. But for laying snails, they must not be very small, but they should be sizable, and make sure that they've started dropping their eggs before you purchase. So that is the advice. Do not look for very big size snails to start your farm. Otherwise, you'll be getting someone else's old layers as your own point of lay. So that is a general advice for the public. And also, snail farming requires a lot of commitment. You can see how the snails are doing. They are thriving very well. We feed them, we water the pens, we make sure we check for mortality and all of that. Even at that, it doesn't mean the snails will not die. Snails produce a lot, and nature has made it in a way that the mortality is fairly high, because it's a way of controlling the population of the animal. But be that as it may, proper management will always yield the dividends. So ensure you feed your snails at the right time, water them. The water should not be too much, the soil should not be too moist, it should not be completely dry. And also the greenhouse, make sure your vegetation is well managed, because once the vegetation is depleted, the ground becomes bare and your snails will start to die. So if you do not have adequate vegetation, ground cover, snails in the greenhouse will not survive, because they are nocturnal animals. They need a place to hide at every time during the day. But when they are exposed to daylight like that, of course, there's visibility in the greenhouse. And when the floor is completely dry with no vegetation, your snails will die in their numbers. So make sure if you have a greenhouse system, the vegetation is always maintained at a certain level. You can see that greenhouse from the videos we have, from this conversation we've been having. You notice the greenhouse has been there for years, and you can see the level of the vegetation. That's because we also feed them there. So when you feed them, they don't depend on the vegetation. But if you don't feed them because you think you have grown enough vegetation for them, they will deplete it. And when they deplete it, it becomes difficult for you to regrow the vegetation. Why? Because as you grow it, once it sprouts, they cut it off and eat it. So whatever you plant cannot grow to sustain them. So when you establish the greenhouse, allow the vegetation to grow at least to your knee level. When the vegetation is as high as your knee level, you can stock. And when you stock, make sure you give them supplementary feed. So when they come alive in the night and feed on whatever you give to them, they are already full. So they do not have the energy or the time to start feeding on the vegetation again. Even if they do, they just eat a little. And that's where your vegetation will continue growing and the greenhouse will be sustained. And in a situation where the vegetation is overgrown, once it's getting too high, you trim it so it doesn't get to the roof of the greenhouse. So we've said a lot on this video, and I hope